Taking a break from dating. A lot of the guys who watch this channel, follow Andy, follow myself, are working very hard on improving their dating lives. So today I'm going to ask the question of, is it okay to ever take a break from dating? And Andy and I are very big on the idea of you doing what you want to do. We believe that you will always default to doing what you want to do. So in this case, do what you want to do. That was a very quick video. I can't believe I get paid for these. But no, to make this more interesting and to give you some actual insight, I am going to pretend that it's like a coaching client coming to us in the Winners Club, which is the coaching group Andy and I run. And I'm going to say, how would I, break down what they're asking, whether or not they're doing it for the reasons they say they are, whether or not it's actually what they want to do. I think I'm going to look at it through that. Straight off the bat, I want to say that I'm not the biggest fan of what is widely known as monk mode. This idea of, eschewing all dating and relationship stuff, even breaking up with current relationships or whatever, to go all in and focus on one specific goal. This seems to be really put on a pedestal by a lot of guys. And having done it a few times myself, it's just not something I'm a huge fan of. So there is an initial resistance in my own personal experiences and, helping other guys, coaching the experiences of people who I have, walked through certain goals, especially with regards to girls and dating, that it's just not, as a default, not the best path. And the other thing is, when a client asks this, as a coach, it is up to you to some degree, before you start advising them on this, to determine whether or not it's actually what they want. Or is it their anxiety and their fear and their pain threshold for dealing with, the stuff that comes up in dating, especially if you're new to it, especially if you're someone who's never had a lot of success in the past, trying to grind your way into dating the sort of girls you're after or having the sort of sex life that you want. Is the difficulty of that and the anxiety that that's causing pushing you to try and quit momentarily and therefore not go after what you really want, which is the dating life, which is the great sex life? And I think it's important, as to me as a coach, to Andy as a coach, to always be cognizant of this and the power that the anxieties and the fears and that stuff plays in, specifically in dating. I mean, it works. This stuff works in business as well. It happens in the gym to some degree. It happens to any social goal, but so much in dating. You see guys fronting like they want to tap out when they don't really want to tap out. They've told you, especially guys who come into the coaching group, like guys who are basically from the off have told Andy, hey, this is my number one goal. I have been a loser with girls all my life. I've been unable to attract the women that I want. This is my number one goal. And then you get a little bit down the garden path with them and they're suddenly like, oh, I think I want to take a break, or I want to stop, or I don't think this is what I actually want. It's like, okay, we just want you to really ask yourself. This has come up a few times in the group. It's come up recently with someone who's an absolute fucking legend. They actually lost their virginity recently. I hope they don't mind me talking about them. But it's come up like countless times before with other guys that I've coached for or helped, or at least they've become my friends actually, not just coaches, but guys who have always come back to the idea of just quitting, of just stopping, of taking a break, and that break being quite long. I think it's definitely okay in certain circumstances, but always, before I get into the circumstances where I'm going to talk about it and where I'm going to look at methods you can use or situations where I think I personally would do it, I think ask yourself, really look at yourself in the mirror, do whatever you have to do. Some guys, use certain compounds to have like trips and journeys to figure themselves out. You know what I'm talking about? To figure out what you truly want. And if you are trying to quit dating because you're finding it too hard and because you're finding it too scary or because you're not getting the results currently, and like I have done, throwing a bit of a tantrum about how you're not getting the results you want, to put it in the least, what's the word I'm looking for? The least charitable way I can put it is when guys throw a massive strop about their lack of dating results and then threaten to quit when they know they're not really going to quit. They just aren't. They're just having a frustrated moment and quitting is coming up as if that's even an option. I don't think for guys who have signed up for the group, I don't think for the guys who are serious about this stuff, that quitting is really an option. But taking that, 3, 6 month, year-long break, going full monk mode and ignoring women, supposedly, that seems like quite a tempting option. I just want guys to question whether or not they're doing it for the right reasons, or at least the reasons that are most important to them. Because I know when I've taken breaks before, sometimes it was not due to the right reasons for me personally, and for what I actually wanted over everything else. It's kind of like someone quitting the gym in the first week of February. You know, they had the New Year's resolution, they had a really fucking good first couple of weeks in January, and then the third and the fourth weeks they were hard. The DOMs were really bad. The weight started to get really heavy. Maybe they were doing cardio and they couldn't break through that wall, get into another stage of cardio. And quitting is easier than getting through the pain period. Simple as. And I view dating very much the same. In fact, dating is probably more of a powerful pain period in terms of, like, for some guys they get stuck at certain points. They can't necessarily get to the levels they were dreaming of really quickly. And so it becomes a difficult question of, do I want this, or do I want to quit, or do I want to do something else? So that's my speech about that out at the beginning of the way. I think I want to look at some of the times that I've actually taken breaks and whether or not they were good reasons or not. The first time I ever took a really long break from this, when I was doing dating really hard, when I was in Melbourne, when I first met Andy, when I was doing coaching with him the first time around, which was like 5 years ago now. The first break I took was during COVID, when I had to go home. I went from doing dating in lockdown in Melbourne to being locked down in the rural countryside in the UK, being incredibly depressed about COVID, dealing with a lot of mental health issues. And I basically decided not to leave the rural area until I'd tried to sort out my mental health issues that had come from the depression of being like locked down and isolated and unable to really do anything. And that's the first huge break I took when I first started doing the dating stuff seriously. And I think I'm willing to say that dealing with serious mental health issues is one of the more valid reasons for taking a break. And I'm really coming at, like, from the position of taking breaks generally is not the best idea, like, especially if you're like trying to meet a really nice girl and settle down and have a partner. You want to be like dating as much as you can, but taking a break because you're trying to work on really significant mental health problems, I think that's the ones I thought was really valid. It worked for me doing like that period of time where I'm just like, okay, I'm letting go of everything except dealing with this depression. I think that's a genuinely valid one. But, you know, don't assume that, like, some of what the anxiety and stuff that you're feeling during the dating process is that. We're talking like depression, which is very different, in my opinion anyway, although those can be symptoms, of course. But you'll know. Like, I think you'll know when you're like, or maybe that's the problem with depression, actually. People don't catch it. But if you catch yourself in depression, yeah, that's a valid reason to go and sort yourself out. You're not in a very good frame of mind to be like trying to date in those situations anyway. Now I'm trying to think of other times I took a break. That's actually the only serious break I've taken in the last 5 years. I've always made it almost a priority to make sure that my dating life is a factor of my life. And I think as part of this video, I want to emphasize that from my point of view, I always try, and if I'm helping someone build their lifestyle that they want, I always want them to have like dating as an option there. Like, you live in a city with good logistics, you have access to a lot of girls on the apps, you have access to places to go and approach women, if that's in bars, if that's what you like to do. You have maybe social circles where you can meet new girls. I always want to, if I'm helping someone build their life, that would be my advice, is to always have the options. And if you always have the options kind of around, I don't think you will take very long breaks. Like, you're just going to see hot girls around, the girls you find attractive, and it's going to drag you back in. And if you took a break and you find yourself just getting distracted by girls, you can't stop thinking about girls, that is maybe a sign that you weren't doing exactly what you wanted to do. You were doing, you were taking the quit path, which is what I'm trying to tell people. Maybe you shouldn't do that. I have some different ideas about, instead of quitting, you can lower your output when it comes to dating. You can lower the amount of time and effort you're putting into it. I've become something of an expert of this over the last year or so. Year or two, 3 years. Fuck me, how long have I been working on business stuff? 3 years. There we go. That's a more valid time period that I've been doing this stuff. And I've got a couple of things that I do. One of them I've spoken about in a video before. It's called the Blast and Cruise dating model. I've completely stolen this from someone else. He also doesn't like taking breaks. And Blast and Cruise, it's taken a little bit, the phrasing of it is taken from steroid and bodybuilding. I've never done steroids, but I like the idea of when I heard of this dating idea, I immediately went to that. So Blast and Cruise, you do for a short period of time, you go really hard on the apps, you go really hard on approaching, go on a lot of dates. You basically, either if you're monogamous, you would get a partner out of that, and then you would cruise with that partner. As I am non-monogamous in an ethical manner, and someone like Andy, he's got a girlfriend, but he also sleeps with other girls, you would do the same thing, and then you would retain the amount of girls that you want to date. ongoing, and then your cruise period is just not really seeing anyone new. You're just seeing the girls that you already have, or you're just seeing one partner if that's what you're into. That's what blast and cruise is. That's pretty normal, I think, especially for monogamous guys who like jump in and out of relationships. It's probably just how they go through life. But for an ethically non-monogamous person, this makes sense for me. So I'm not just fucking dating like 6 girls a week all fucking year, because it's just not tenable when I'm working on business stuff. So that's an option. Instead of taking breaks, you cruise when you've got girls that you're retaining. That's what I would recommend. The other one is, and this kind of ties in, but so I got this from lawyers who apparently there's basically a thing in law where instead of retiring, you raise your hourly fee to a point that no one is going to be willing to pay you. So you just raise your hourly fee to that level. And if someone comes along with a case and you're like 84, but they're willing to pay you like, I don't know, fucking 6 figures an hour to work on the case, you're just going to take it because, like, you know, Jesus, that's a lot of money. So in relation to this, I had this thing for a while where I didn't actually have any girls retained at all, but I wasn't massively keen on the idea of getting back in and like dating a lot and like putting the volume in, because I was leaving Vancouver. So actually quite recently. So instead what I did is raise my standards to a ridiculous level. Like I wouldn't go on dates if I was getting the wrong vibe over text message. I wouldn't go on dates with any girl I found not excitingly attractive. I just massively raised the standard it took to get me out on a date. And if I didn't go on a date that week, hooray, I had more time to do work. But I still had my foot in the water. I was still going on dates. I was going on about one date every probably week and a half to maybe one date a week, actually. I was still going on a fair few in that time in Vancouver, because for whatever reason the apps. Oh yeah, it was because of it was after Christmas and like the first 2 months, January, February into Valentine's Day. So there was actually a lot of like girls who were meeting my standards on the apps, because there was loads of fucking girls on the apps. So that was my solution to not taking a break, even though I was leaving, was to massively raise my standards. And I was like, Jesus, basically it was like, I cannot not go on a date with this girl. That was the level I had to get to. I actually met a couple of really cool girls by doing this. I might just not drop my standards now. Just fucking, that's what they are now. I'm like a lawyer who cannot be bought except if you have a lot of fucking money. That's what I'm going to do. This is my suggestion to you. If you're like sick and bored, you've done a lot of like high volume dating, which the guys in our community have done, fucking be disciplined about your standards and raise them to a point where you're not going on like double dates every night from Wednesday till Sunday. You know, do that. And then, or try blast and cruise. Or, you know, if you have the problems I spoke about, like you have serious mental health issues you've got to deal with, I don't want to put like business issues, I guess, on the ledger of like, this is a good reason to take a break. I do think if you are going hard in money and finance and business, if you're going hard at any other goal, having dating as a, like a, not distraction, but like something else to do, like to go and do that instead of working on the business or whatever, is really healthy. Like there is a lot to be said for the mainstream advice of having a more balanced life. It does give you a chance to, you know, chill out with someone and recover, especially if it's a long-term partner, or you know, a girl you've retained on a casual basis, but she's really chill. She like makes you feel great when you hang out with her. You get to reward yourself. Andy and I are really big on using girls and dating as a reward for like a really hard day's work that we've done. We think that's actually a really good way to look at it. Like, this girl's really hot. I get to go on this date right now. Thank God I've just done 10 hours of grind and work to make myself feel like I've earned this date and I've earned this fun experience and I've earned meeting this hot girl and potentially, you know, taking it further with her. So that's what I would suggest. This is like why I don't want you to necessarily quit. There's loads of reasons why I don't want you to quit. Even though I want you to do what you want to do, I also want you to do what I want you to do, okay? No. There's, from my perspective anyway, and you know, my perspective is obviously the correct one, that there are good reasons to not take breaks, and why I feel a ping of resistance to encouraging guys to take breaks. But, you know, if a guy's there sitting on coaching call with Andy and I, and he's just like, no, I'm in my head, I can't deal with the, you know, the pain of this or the mental anguish, or I want to really look at myself in the mirror for like a week and just double check this is really what I want. Yeah, I'm going to be okay with them taking like, you know, a week to 2 weeks just to make sure, just like really ask themselves the serious questions. And also, if you take a break no longer than 3 weeks, but if you take a break like that, you'll know, because you'll start thinking about girls a lot. You'll start thinking about dating a lot. You'll start looking at the apps again. you'll start thinking about going out and trying to approach girls again. You'll start thinking about, hey, maybe I should get a wingman and go to some bars. That's what will happen. It will creep into your mind, and it will remind you that this is something that you did want to work on. So that's what I would say. Like, there is actually almost a benefit for taking a short break. I'm going to end the video by saying that my recommendation maybe would be to take a short break and see if the desire to get in the mix again comes back in a vengeance inside that short break. Because if it does, congrats, you've got full confirmation that it is really what you want, and you don't want to quit, and you don't want to take 3 to 6 months off and then come back and tell us this is actually what you want. You don't have to do that. The final point I would make to make there as well is if you take the 3 or 6 months, you're going to be rusty when you get back. I forgot to mention this earlier. This is the biggest thing that I always try and avoid, is taking long breaks. And then when I come back, I'm just like rusty. Even though I've had loads of experience, there's still like, I don't know, probably like 4 to 6 dates it takes me to get back into the swing of things, like the rhythm again, and like get back into, you know, how I chat on the apps and all that stuff. When I took a long break and I didn't have a lot of girls. The other times I've taken long breaks is just when I was in a situation where the logistics were just terrible. I just didn't want to bother. But those were rarely longer than like a month. But like the big break that I remember when I came off of it, it had been like 6 months that I hadn't dated a girl. And I was super fucking rusty. I was a bit more of a newbie, but I am more talking, I guess, to guys who are a little bit less experienced. So I will say that if you've only just started, maybe you have like 6 months experience, maybe you were someone who was a virgin or you were very inexperienced, or you just haven't talked to many girls, whatever. If you go hard at it, get a lot of experience, kind of build up your confidence, and then take a long break, there's a risk because you're newer at it, you don't have as much like, you know, mental muscle memory on this stuff, that you will come back fucking rusty. And that's not a fun experience, let me tell you. It's not fun to have to pick up the pieces on this stuff and like slowly grind your way back to your confidence. I've seen that with guys who are really experienced too, and they take a long break and they're like, oh shit, my confidence is in the floor. It's like when I got back to England, I hadn't driven for a year. Like I was in Canada, I never drove a car for like a whole year because I was living in the center of a city. And I got back here and I've been driving for like, I'm 30 years old. I've been driving for like 14 years or whatever. But like I got home and I'm like, do I remember how to drive a car? And for like a week, I was just kind of I was also jet lagged to shit, but I was like avoiding using the car for any reason. Because even though I had 14 years experience, that year of not driving had made me like think, shit, do I remember like everything? Do I know how to do it? And obviously I get in the car and I drive for about 2 seconds and I'm like, oh, it's like riding a fucking bike. Okay, cool. But that gap, that hesitation, that like, do I remember how to do this? That happens with dating as well. And it's a little bit harder to pick that confidence back up because you need to gain some wins early. You need to see some girls. You need to get laid a little bit. You need to, you know, have girls react really well to you. Maybe not go on a few shitty dates to start with. You just want to build momentum and confidence. So, and get your standards back up. So that stuff kind of, you know, plays into it as well. There is the rustiness. Well, I'm glad I mentioned that right at the end. So, if you want to take the advice in this video, you are welcome to. As I said at the beginning, you're going to do what you want to do, and you're not going to do anything else. That's a big lesson that Andy and I have learned as coaches. Can't force anyone to do anything. We're massive fucking libertarians, but it's also just the reality of coaching. Right. I'm going to let Andy's video roll. If you liked my insight here, maybe you would appreciate coaching from myself and Andy Andy's going to tell you a little bit more about that. Peace.
If you've been wanting an amazing, awesome, elite sex life, tons of threesomes, plenty of wild adventures and great memories with awesome people, we would love to help you get there. Here's just a little bit of what our coaching clients have achieved in their time in the program. Renee had a threesome in just his second week of coaching, had a woman write him a love letter, and he went on to have sex with 12 women in just 12 weeks of coaching. Corky had his first threesome, slept with 7 amazing women, and made a ton of awesome memories with them. George and Powell both had sex with 10 women each in their 12 weeks, had a bunch of wild adventures along the way. Join me and join them by clicking the coaching link in the description below.